Anton Krieger here. This episode of All Things Green is brought to you by NextGen Clean Energy Solutions, your sustainability easy button from concept to completion. Welcome to All Things Green. I'm Anton, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. Jessica Davis is the founder of Rebuilders Xchange, a business that creates a circular economy by salvaging building materials that would otherwise be in landfills. She makes them marketable for consumers. Jessica, thank you so much for being here today.
Happy to be here.
Yeah? Really?
Correct.
Tell me how happy.
A 10.
A 10! Well, off the set, we were talking a little bit about how you got into sustainability, and you gave me a fun anecdote about the farm. Tell me and the audience about the farm.
The farm. Okay, it's like
The
a
farm.
euphemism. But so anyways, I think that I grew up in a community of more farming mindset, so that if you have an animal and it makes manure, the manure then becomes the fertilizer.
Yeah.
So it's like the beginning of a circular economy.
Yeah.
Not the beginning, but it was my beginning. Another example could be my little grandpa. He had, do you know what a spool of thread looks like?
Yeah, I do.
So if you were to take the spool, you could put a nail or a screw through it and use it as a standoff or a railing.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that. It was kind of you look around and everything's been repurposed.
Yeah. So spools and animal poop, to a lot of people, that's not very valuable.
But that's one of my special gifts.
But that's one of your special gifts.
Yeah.
And that's how we get into Rebuilders Xchange. That's your business, and it kind of functions like a circular economy. Tell me all about
Okay, Rebuilders Xchange is a little bit like if Home Depot and Facebook Marketplace had a baby.
Wow. That's like my dream right there.
Yeah, a lot of people's. There's a lot of dreams coming true. So if you think about everything from bathtubs, doors, windows, hardwood flooring, anything that could be in the construction or built environment, at some point things change. Buildings get torn down, there's excess from job sites. Actually, about 23% of municipal waste is construction and demolition debris.
That's insane. 23%.
And if you think about like RBX, I think we're a big deal, but obviously
You are a
this
big
is
deal.
the first time that you're hearing, or maybe your audience is hearing about us, so we're not a household brand yet. But we, in our little venture here in Cleveland, as a proof of concept, have diverted hundreds of tons of material. And then on top of it, right now, we're carrying $1.4 million in inventory. So how it works is we have people who bring stuff in, more like a consignment model. So let's say you brought in this cup.
Yeah.
And so you bring in this mug. Thank you, NextGen, for being here. And then we take it and we inventory it.
Yeah.
So you have a unique ID. We have 900 plus people who do. And then when we sell it, we split it 50-50.
Wow.
So are you familiar with any other businesses kind of like us? Or what have you heard of that might be either consignment or construction material?
Man, RBX seems pretty unique in that the people who are bringing in materials, they get paid. It's not like a donation center where people are just loading junk into, a donation center.
Yeah. So like what we are is more of a social enterprise. So the idea is that we are for profit, and I have seen some nonprofit models, and it's kind of an older school linear model where it's relying on the haves and have-nots, so that it's donation based, so that people feel good and it makes an impact by donating, and the nonprofits can divert tons of waste, and that's great. But what we try to do is create more of a wealth mindset versus a charity mindset. So the wealth mindset is that the people who bring in the material get paid for it. People who are shopping have access to diverse amounts of quality inventory, and that the inventory itself value is raised a little bit when it comes to RBX because we recognize its value.
Yeah. And another thing I love about your business, kind of like the Facebook Marketplace aspect, is that cool old vintage stuff that comes through your building. those are pieces that really can be a centerpiece or like a talking piece for a home, add value to your home. Furthermore, enrich people's lives. Like that can make somebody really happy, and it's all sustainable. It's not like junk you bought off of Amazon or something.
Yeah, I think, what's the last, well, I won't ask you what the last thing you bought is.
You can.
I was going to, but I won't. What's the last piece of construction? Have you bought anything construction related recently?
I bought
Or working on a project?
I bought some plywood from Home Depot. It was like 23 by 32 isn't that the size? 23 by 32? It's like, I don't know why they do these crazy fractions. But
Yeah. I think I know what you're saying now. Yeah. Got it. You're talking about, I was thinking
the thickness.
Yep, got it. So what were you doing with it?
I was making a little library to be put in the Tremont neighborhood of Cleveland.
This is killing me. We've got to work together because
Okay.
I was just thinking I needed to find like a 4-H group or a group of, because I would love to have a tiny library building workshop at RBX because
Really?
it's perfect we have tons of building material that would be great for.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the Fab Lab where you guys have a workshop that is able to work on some of these projects.
Okay, so the business started, like I said, we started it and it was kind of wild because we didn't really have a business before we started one. I just understood from some of my other work that there was a need for accessibility to quality used construction material because I saw things changing with the nonprofit world, right? So that they were becoming maybe more like furniture, thrift store-ish versus just like reuse centers for construction material. And so that started. Then I may or may not have a foxy, at the time, boyfriend. And
Well, he's a silver fox.
yeah, he had some experience. So he'd been around the block a few times. I like seconds. On brand.
That's on brand.
And I see value. He's so, yeah. So anyways, he was in the technology industry, but he started out as a welder when he was in the trades when he was a kid.
Yeah.
So he got interested in what I was doing and supportive, and then started a Fab Lab in the back. So what he does is he takes like people's ideas and brings them into fruition. So let's say that you buy a door and then you want that door refinished, or you want a piece of glass put in it instead of it being solid.
Yeah.
The Fab Lab brings your vision to fruition.
Wow. So you're able to, it's kind of one-stop shop. You want to buy that really cool old oak door.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I want that little stained glass piece right in the center. You just bring it over to the Fab Lab in the same building, and they make it happen.
Yeah, it's so cool. And we don't, like some other places, like another example, there used to be like single salvagers. So there's companies like Black Dog Salvage on the East Coast. And they go and salvage buildings for themselves. And then they have a store that sells that material. And then sometimes they take, and maybe they have a boat anchor and they turn it into a table. Where for us, we have 900 plus people bringing in material, and we don't transform it unless somebody asks for it, because so many of our actually all of our customers are in the transformation business. So they're all transforming something.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. I wanted to ask you about your buyers. Are these people that are they're all makers themselves? I mean, do you have any, do you see any one-offs, people from the suburbs that are just like, I really want a cool coffee table or something? Do you have those one-offs?
Yeah, we definitely have one-offs. So we have a pretty, you can follow us on social media.
Oh, go ahead.
Our RBX CLE.
Yeah.
And that's on Instagram. And so people follow us and they get inspired and come in. So we have our website, believe it or not, it has 90% of our inventory on it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I like to think of it kind of like there's three parties involved to make us successful. It's the team at RBX, the vendors who bring in material, and then the customers. So all three of us working together is really what creates, there'd be no RBX without any one of those entities.
Yeah. And I love your proof of concept. We've kind of glossed over it, but being able to keep so many materials out of the landfill after buildings are being demoed in Cleveland, we have a lot of new construction in Cleveland. making sure that that stuff finds a new home, pieces that bring people joy. I think that's so special. And in addition to that, like the materials that maybe are coming from a demoed home, they could be like 60, 80, 100 years old, right? But
Yeah.
how long did it take for that door to actually, grow as a tree before it was cut down and be made? I mean, just think of the history of some of these
I know,
pieces.
that's what I think about sometimes. I'm not going to cry right now, but sometimes it almost makes me cry just to think about how phenomenal it is. We have a lot of really, like, because we're stronger together, like the team. I mean, the group of the community of RBXers.
Yeah.
So if you think, we had this one lighting expert, and when electrical lights first were coming into fruition, they could be gas or electric because they didn't trust the electricity or the grid was going to be a good solution, so they were still could get light from gas.
Wow.
And so if you think about that being in the 20s, or have you ever seen a light fixture? Like, we have all these gorgeous theaters in Cleveland, so I know that this is like an international show, but in Cleveland we have a pretty big theater district.
Yeah.
And so you look at the chandeliers, and you know how they don't have shades on the light bulbs? Have you ever seen that when you've looked up in a theater?
I never thought about that, but I do know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. So what happened is, I asked this guy, I was like, why is it like that? And he's like, well, because when electricity first came out, people were so excited to show off their light bulbs. It was like that was the feature.
That is so cool.
Then if you think about in just like going from like the 20s to the 40s or the 50s or the 60s in a small like 40-year span time,
Yeah.
it's changed so much. It's like in every house.
Yeah.
So I think that there's something interesting about the built environment because it's a reflection of the values of where people are at the time and invention.
Mm-hmm.
And even in new construction, because I'm like, will we ever run out of material? These cool old features that that you're talking about that are so awesome, which is a large percentage of what we do. The other thing is a lot of new construction sites will have overages, I guess. Like, imagine if you're doing a bathroom and it's 2x4, you might have to buy more tile.
Yeah.
Or you might be buying more just to make sure you have enough to finish the project.
A lot of that leftovers will still
Yeah.
go to your business.
Yeah, and then it will be perfect from a very high quality tile, new and in the box, can be used for a smaller project.
I love that. I'm curious, do you see a lot of these builders and developers bringing you materials that are people willing to buy secondhand brand new materials? Does it just look like a discount, or are people like worried that it's not going to be enough for their project, or do people kind of like to make a mosaic of some of the old material and some of the new material that's in-house?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So I think that what happens is that we have a lot of different kinds of customers, but every customer that we have is going to transform and has a vision. So they're going to take something from RBX and make it into something else. Like if you sold wedding dresses, people would be getting married more or less. So with Rebuilders Xchange, the customers, it's like the law of attraction. They tend to be attracted to what will work for them. Because you're looking for material for a specific project, or you're inspired by the material, and then you make the project around it.
That's cool. Yeah. I never thought of it like that. Are there other types of RBX stores in the country?
Not really. There's like the nonprofit model, which is the haves and the have-nots. So the money goes back into the mission of the organization.
Yeah.
And then there's a single salvager model that we talked about, where maybe it's me and my family, and we go out and get materials. Because I used to sell out of my van for a while, and I'm familiar with that. But it's only ever as big as you are. And we're trying to systematize so that there can be RBXs in more cities and more people have access to creating community wealth. One of the things about this version of reuse is that it's hyper-localized. So that, we do have customers that purchase things and we'll ship it, very one-of-a-kind, unusual pieces. But for the value of bringing in the material with transportation, you can keep it more local, and that there's need locally. So then the cost in the isn't associated with the transportation.
Yeah.
So we can keep it economical for the consumer.
And hopefully cut down on some fossil fuel emissions, right?
That's my main goal.
Yeah. That's the right answer for a sustainability podcast. But I think that's so cool. Like, that is like the circular economy. People, it's building community wealth. It's not just one person making money off of a venture, and it's not a nonprofit that's having to jump through hoops to try and help out maybe just a small sect of the community. I mean, anybody can participate in what you have to offer.
Yeah, I think it's super great. I think that there's so much possibility for it to grow and for it to be a model that creates more wealth for more people. The goal was never for it to be just in Cleveland. It's just that Cleveland people seem to be so great at making things happen and bringing in the material. And we work with a lot of the unions and laborers and developers and individuals that I think we can do it somewhere else. I'm not going to say it's going to be as good as Cleveland, but.
Are you gonna be the one to head that up, or
yeah, of course.
You're gonna try and spur somebody else to do the heavy lifting for you?
Well, that's so funny because today a customer came in, and something I'll get occasionally is like, I'll be on the tow motor and moving some big material around. They'll be like, "They let you drive that thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, they do." I let myself drive my tow motor. But it was kind of cool because we were talking about the possibility of franchising. And it was somebody who had quite a bit of franchise experience. And it was just so fun to think about the scalability of RBX. So we're really good at partnering, and doing it together is better than doing it yourself. So we'll see. Do you know of somebody from your show that we should partner with to franchise and make this happen? Who do you got?
Yeah, we have Matt over here, one of our crew people that actually expressed some interest off the air. So.
Okay, fabulous.
Yeah.
Thanks for that heads up.
Yeah. Well, so Jessica, I want to circle back and ask a little bit about when you started first selling material out of your van.
Yeah.
You know, a small
down by the river.
A small venture is so cool. And when you eventually partnered with people like Soulcraft and other nonprofits and for-profits that came together to be in the Hamilton space that you're in right now, what was that like, and how do these smaller incubator spaces maybe relate to sustainability?
Well, it's cool because if I were to look at your show rosters, and we were talking about the people who were on here before, even though we might not be in a similar industry, if your approach is social enterprise or green-minded community, you rally around other people who are doing the same thing. So Rebuilders Xchange has a lot of small businesses who purchase from us to start their businesses.
Wow.
So if you could imagine you're starting a small business, you need resources, maybe you're creatively minded, that you could come to RBX to use the material. You could make a door fit. Mm-hmm. So when one door closes, another one opens.
I love that.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like, I think that that isn't a direct, so those businesses specifically that we kind of collaborated with to start, there was a lot of synergy with the beginnings and community resources, and looking at like community building among each other, and then with our group. So Soulcraft is a community access wood shop, and you get a membership like a gym, and then you can do woodworking there. Mm-hmm. So you have maybe a locker or a table, and you can take classes, or you can just go work independently and have a code to get in to a full wood shop, because maybe everybody doesn't have access to a full wood shop anymore, right? And then the people who are members of there could come to RBX and buy materials to transform into the projects that they're working on.
Yeah.
So we really do love working with other people. If I wanted to do it alone, do it myself, I would be, and it's just so much more fun to do it together.
Yeah, and you're able to probably reach a lot more people in the Cleveland area with that overlap, which I think is also really cool.
Yep, it is.
Well, Jessica, tell me about your favorite project that has come out of the Fab Lab.
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, there's been so many things. There's An old RTA door that was turned in to Graffiti Heart, another local organization. They took and they built a frame for an old train door to turn it into like a swinging door for a commercial space. They've
pretty cool.
done emergency exit ladders for old buildings over on the east side that needed. So they're very highly engineered so that they could work around the old architecture. Copper and brass hood ranges for above fireplace or for above cooking
Stoves,
ranges.
yeah.
Yeah. And then there's this one thing that was kind of, it's in the works right now. It's almost done. But it was a bar top. And when it came in, it looked like a Pizza Hut, like with Formica on top of it, like an old bar from just like kind of a fast food place-ish.
Yeah.
And so my Silver Foxy was like, Ron Copper was like, what are you going to do with that? And I was like, oh, I don't know. But the vendor who brought it in has, some people just have the magic, have like some magic to them. So I was like, well, let's just see what happens. So customers bought it because it had Naugahyde base on it. And they're like, well, like maybe you can make a bar out of this. Next thing you know, they peeled the Formica, 18-inch solid mahogany underneath it.
Wow.
So then it was like that. See what I mean? A perfect combination. RBX is the matchmaker in between the vendor and the customer. The customer had the vision. The vendor did all the heavy lifting to bring it in, and then the Fab Lab was able to bring the customer's vision to, fruition. It was awesome. I mean, it's so awesome. And then I also like some of the old things too because they're like nicotine yellow, and so you can just imagine that you do like a little bit of cleaning, and they'd be phenomenal.
Yeah. I think those are really cool projects, and I wanted to share my experience growing up as like a Gen Z boy who was always pushed more into the college spaces. I never really thought that I was very handy growing up, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to get into any of the building or reclaiming or anything like that. But I found it actually, once I gave it a try, to be a very creative and fun outlet to give a shot. And I would be curious what you would be willing to tell somebody who's maybe doesn't think they're very handy, but is into sustainability and would love to have some cool pieces around their house.
Well, I'm inspired by you just sharing that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that what happens is when people, like with your, like let's say your experience or your mindset, sometimes people who don't know how to do it can get it done the best because they're not intimidated by what they think it should be. So we've had a customer who bought a corner cabinet. She didn't have a corner, but she wanted it. So she just built a corner in her kitchen. It was like a big open space so she could put this gorgeous cabinet. And her husband was like, but we don't have a corner. She's like, but I love the cabinet because it was. And so she didn't have nothing was going to stop her from her vision.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like even a wall being built didn't matter, and it got done. And it looked fabulous. And then sometimes we have people who are experts, and they can't get started because they already have seen the end and they know how much work is involved. So there's a certain gift to being green.
I love that.
I knew you
You're
would.
on fire today, Jessica.
I know, but I think that there's not, you can't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I do little challenges, which is like what happened here. But I like my husband is like an engineer mind, so he thinks in precision, and I'll build things without measuring, and I'll just like I can make the thing. So I'm really scrappy in that way, and sometimes we work together well and sometimes not, because sometimes I'm like, oh God, it's just, we've measured enough. And he's like, why aren't you measuring?
I think that's really cool. Everybody works differently.
Yeah.
And even if you're seasoned or you're green, you could still find a way to get involved and make something with your hands.
And there's no way that anybody knows everything. So like, how did you learn to do what you did?
I really just started to spend more time with my dad when he was finishing the basement. I just never thought I could do that. But once you start getting your hands dirty, you start learning how to put up walls like nothing,
And it also like I can be like, I have sometimes confidence, sometimes borderline arrogance. It's nice, healthy dose. But what I was telling, like I was using some tools that hadn't used before, and that's kind of what happened here with this finger. But what was interesting is, it's like because I'm so good at using certain tools, I hadn't even really approached these other ones with the same amount of respect.
Yeah.
And you see people working on them, and you just think, I can do it, which you can, but it also gives me more respect for people who are master craftspeople.
Yeah.
That's not the road I'm going down. I just love creating.
Yeah, I think that's...
And so there's a variety of ways and respect that you can have.
Yeah, and you don't have to go all the way to the master craftsman route to have fun and to use some of these reclaimed materials in your home, right?
And you can learn from them, and they can learn. It's like, it's just juicy.
It's
okay,
juicy.
so what are you going to build next?
Man, what am I going to build next? Well, actually, this is a surprise.
If I don't see you at RBX, I do not want to hear.
This is a secret.
Okay,
there's a girl that I like.
Oh, yeah?
And she's trying to create a little outdoor space for herself, like a little garden. And she wants a bench where she can just sit and read.
Oh, my God.
And so...
Perfect.
I'm going to build her a bench.
Are you going to come into RBX?
Yeah.
What would you... Okay. Let's go through this. Is it outside? Is it covered where she's at?
It's not covered. It's going to have to be a rot-resistant wood.
You know, the other thing we just got in is some gorgeous barn beams.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dang.
And so this is something...
So I'm going to have to build her a covering, you're saying?
No. You're going to have to build her a barn to put the bench in. Where's she going to store this? No. Okay, so this is cool. So barns used to be built out of the wood that was on the property. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that it would be a walnut next to sycamore, next to poplar. So it wasn't like, here's a walnut barn and here's an oak barn.
Yeah, it was just
it was like
a mosaic of
correct,
wood.
what was there. So think about sustainable, locally sourced materials, lack of fossil fuels. So when this barn got demoed, we got a lot of the beams in.
Yeah.
And we had one customer who, his name is Woody. He's a wood expert. And so he came in.
You're making this up.
No, I couldn't make it up. So he came in and he helped us think about going through and identifying all of the different wood that was from this barn. And it's so fun to see the distinctions of the grains and the weight of it. He took some home and sanded it all up and looked gorgeous. So someone can use it for a mantle, but I bet that you could use some of this wood for a bench, and it would look awesome. You just clean it up on the ends.
I'm going to have to stop in and go
get some sandstones.
Wood, talk to Woody.
Yeah, you can't tell you who he is. You'll never be able to find him. He doesn't want to be identifiable.
Okay.
On the interwebs.
That's fair.
Flip phones only.
So, Jessica, you got $1.4 million in inventory on hand. Mm-hmm. Break that down for me.
Okay. So, like I said, 23% of municipal waste is C&D material, right?
Yeah.
So, RBX is phenomenal. We agree to that. But we are the small spark of possibility of what can transform communities. $1.4 million of inventory to us. If we split that 50-50 with the people who bring it in, that's $700,000 back into the hands of the people who bring it in. But think about how much value that is that's not in a landfill. If there was no RBX, that would be in a landfill. If RBX was stronger and better and bigger, there'd be just more waste diverted and more money back into the communities. What other industry do you take millions of dollars and bury it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what we are collectively doing as a community, and RBX is a solution that can change the world.
I've spoke so many times on the podcast about single-use plastics and just junk that we end up throwing away.
Yeah.
What I love about your business model is that we are constantly reusing old materials, maybe sometimes over-engineered, that are going to last the test of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I really appreciate you saying that, because the last thing that we want to do is be contributing to lack of creativity over, like you're saying, the products that could be, why throw it away? There's no value. I mean, why would you take, what else do we take value of and just put it in the trash?
Yeah.
Are you familiar, so you're a Gen Zer?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so tell me about recycling for you. How does it show up? Did you recycle as a kid?
I recycled as a kid. I learned about it in high school, but now I'm at a point where we never really talked about reduce or reuse so much as we did recycle, and that was just throwing the plastic away into the recycling bin, and wherever that goes, it was a mystery. Now I know it's fake. Advanced recycling is just burning plastics in a low-income neighborhood to make fuel for more plastics. But yeah, what's your view on recycling?
No, I just think it's funny, right? Because you don't to your point, if you have hand-me-down clothes, they're recyclable, and if I don't know if you had any siblings or people in your family that you got clothing from or that you passed it down to. So I think that sometimes we look to the idea of invention and technology as solutions. But if you look to communities that are maybe more respectful of resources, then you can find those solutions. So it's like, okay, if a shirt, people used to sell rags. There used to be a rag person because you would take the shirts and turn them into rags before you'd throw them away. And so reducing it is how can we reduce the amount of waste that we have or maybe what we're consuming.
Yeah.
So you have better built materials. The recycling is, with the metals, so what about deposits of bottles? Like
you're gonna have to tell me.
Like milk. Like, did you ever have milk in a jug in a glass jar?
Never.
Oh, dude, there's even a place that's close. It's so good.
Okay, tell me about it.
Okay, so it's like you pay like $2. You get this thing of milk, and you pay like an extra $2 for the glass bottle for the glass to have a deposit, so that when you take it back, so the glass bottle can actually be used again. It's just cleaned out and used again.
Yeah.
But what we have we like this idea of recycling versus reusing. So if you could reuse that bottle, it's actually more valuable because all the energy's already been sunk into the creation of it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to metals, because metals are really common to be recycled, like aluminum cans.
Yeah.
And you can take things to scrap yards. So maybe you saw in communities where there's spray painted on the door, it says no copper, PVC only. It's because we see value, and we've created value around the commodity of ferrous, metal materials. People can take it in and get paid for it. But you can't take a door in and get paid for it anywhere, so then doors just get thrown away.
Right.
But it's like, also, if things that are metal in your house is hardware, radiators, bathtubs, lighting fixtures at times can be metal. But all of those things could be more valuable reused versus recycled in a scrapyard. So we have people who used to take things to scrap yards, and let's say you took a bathtub to a scrapyard and you got paid $10 on it. The value of a cast iron bathtub at RBX might be $200 to $300. So if you're getting 50% of it, you're getting $100 versus $10. Yeah. So we're actually raising the value, and not raising the value, recognizing the value of all of the energy, all of the technology and engineering that it took to create something, and keeping it closer to that form to be reused.
I love that. And I'm not an engineer. I'm not a contractor. But we have a lot of old housing stock in Cleveland that the craftsmanship and the materials used to build those homes, we're not going to see a lot of that craftsmanship or materials be used again in these new suburban, ex-urban developments. And I'm kind of curious what your thought is about reinforcing what we have, investing in the old housing stock. I don't know, is that within your wheelhouse at RBX to talk about?
Yeah, I can talk on behalf of maybe some of our customers and some of our vendors, because we're the conduit for those conversations. I think that what happens in the older housing stock, and I've seen some kind of interesting progress where, if you think about how we used to consume clothes. We used to have many, when you talk about the single use. Yeah. Some clothes are almost single use, right? You wear a dress once, you know how it is. You don't want to wear it again. But minus that shirt that we wore. I'm not wearing this, But what happens is that closets get bigger, and so then homes start to value spaces differently. So that if a house doesn't have a closet, if a room doesn't have a closet, maybe you knock down a wall, or you turn another bedroom into a closet.
Wow,
or maybe
I've never thought of that.
If you think of, and so when you think about electricity, even if you think about the size of a cellular phone, Do you remember how big they used to be?
Yeah, they were the little Nokias, man.
Yeah.
The screen was like the size of a
Yeah.
postage stamp or something.
Yeah, so you had the little ones, but at first they were super big, like the car ones. Then they get
Okay.
super small, and
Yeah.
now they're bigger again. But what's improved is some of the technology for charging them.
Hmm.
So at houses, when LED lights, they take less wattage than they have. This is like different technical, but it's like they take less wattage, but they have more lumens.
Mm-hmm.
So as certain technologies increase, you need less infrastructure. So the better certain technologies are that we're used to, like lighting and maybe cellular phones, you don't need as much power going into the house, or maybe you don't need outlets in every room.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 20s, maybe there was one outlet in a room. Then now it's like the 80s and 90s, and you have a VCR, a cell phone, a mobile phone, like all of these other things. Plug in everything. And then it changes again. So as it ebbs and flows, we have LED lighting, which maybe we can add up lighting to walls without having, we can do it remotely versus having to go into and add wiring.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
You don't have to tap into the knob and tube.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Look at you.
You can just have something that's like maybe a battery and that runs
Yeah.
for months and months on an
Yeah,
LED.
or a rechargeable LED. Yeah.
I totally know
So
what you mean.
then that would change how you could use old housing stock, because what happens is that the old housing stock doesn't align with our lifestyles today. However, it can.
Yeah.
It's just a perception about what our priorities are. It just reveals what different priorities are at different times.
Jessica, thank you so much for being here on the show today. I'm going to have to let our viewers know how they can stay in touch with us and with you so that we can all be working together on some of these reclaimed projects.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, I look forward to working with you again.
Me too. If you'd like to stay connected with the show, be sure to follow us on TikTok at ATG Show. And if you'd like to rewatch full episodes, check out our YouTube channel, All Things Green Show. You can find all of our sources from today's episode in our show notes. All Things Green will be back soon. Thank you so much for being a part of the global sustainability movement.